And I think I said it one time in the car on the way back with my mum and dad that if I never made it as a footballer, I'd like to go into that industry. And it was snowing, it was horrible. Like the training ground wasn't the best at the time. He said to me, "Listen, I can't promise you that you're going to be a professional footballer, but I can promise you that I can make you a better player." Everyone just looked at me and was like, "Well, you kind of come into this world to try and be an intern." And I was like, "Well, you got to do it from now on." So I'm just thinking, I haven't really signed up for this. I've just come to learn a little bit. I went into non-league football, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
So don't think that you're going to come out of a degree and go work straight at a football league club or the club that you support or Premier League club, and you're going to go and work with all these top players and Ronaldo's going to be your prodigy, like you're going to work with him. It's not going to work like that.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we've got something a little bit different. So as you all know, my expertise is around analysis, video analysis, a bit of recruitment, etc. But what I want to do on this channel is branch out to different roles within sport. So as you can tell from the title, today's guest is Elliot Turner, who is the current head of fitness and conditioning at Plymouth Argyle Football Club. So again, not my area of knowledge, but I'm very keen to learn what Elliot gets up to on an average week, what he does on a match day, the kind of things he's testing the players for, and just kind of how he got into the position that he's in now, for anyone that's kind of looking to follow in his footsteps to kind of get a career in sport in the fitness industry. So really excited to speak to Elliot. So without further ado, let's get straight into the conversation. Hello, Elliot. Welcome to the channel, mate. How are you doing today?
How you doing, Chris? You okay?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. So before the video started, I did give a little introduction in terms of who you were, but I do like to pass that on to the guests. So if for those that don't know who you are, Elliot, just quick one, who you are, what you're currently doing, and what's your current job role really?
Yeah, so guys, I'm Elliot Turner. I'm currently head of fitness and conditioning at Plymouth Argyle Football Club with the first team. So yeah, it's just ticking along nicely at the moment, kind of progressed in what I'm doing and just enjoying my role and enjoying being at the club.
Perfect. So we will come on to the seed because obviously you're sat nicely at the top of the league, which I'm sure is a good
yeah.
Enjoying your time there. So League One is, and in fact, before I go into that, I will say, so my background is not in fitness and conditioning, Elliot. So some of these questions, they're more from the basic. Yeah. So I come from more of an analysis background, but I'm sure there is certain things that link when it comes to kind of
interlink, yeah.
Definitely interlinks between the two disciplines. So if we take it all the way back to the start then, Elliot, so just kind of when you first got introduced to the conditioning, because I think I did read you played at academy level and then you actually played professional football as well, didn't you? So if you want to just kind of go into a little bit onto that part.
Yeah, so like you said, my background is in football. It has been since 6 years of age. I was actually involved in Wolves Academy from the age of 6. So it's kind of like a pre-contract kind of agreement that I would sign under 9s level. I was going there 2 or 3 times a week, training with 2 or 3 age groups above myself, alongside playing in my Sunday team, etc. That I was still allowed to do. Yeah. So yeah, played at Wolves from 6th until I was 16. Travelled across the world playing tournaments, which was a brilliant experience, especially for me and myself being from Wolverhampton. Yeah. Playing for my local club and the team that I support, and I used to go and watch with my dad every Saturday when they're at home. It was kind of like a proud thing for myself and my family, and then obviously for them to kind of see me play up the levels and up the ages, and then across the world in different tournaments. It was brilliant. Had a really good time there. That was kind of when I first kind of get introduced to the S&C and sports science world. It was kind of just coming into fruition during that time when myself coming to the academy. I've said it on a number of podcasts, to be fair now, and I still haven't contacted him. But a guy called John Iger, he worked at Wolves in the academy, then was with the first team. He's worked at England, he's been at Norwich and Huddersfield. I think he still might be at Norwich now, doing more of a data side of things. But he was brilliant with us, really, really good in the academy. Introduced us to the gym work, which I've always had a passion for. Introduced how to get better. It was more like no GPS was around then, but it was more like heart rate monitors. So everyone wanted to see what the heart rate monitor was as youngsters, and who could get the highest heart rate and who's working the hardest, or does it mean you're unfit, and little things like that. It would just start to get my brain ticking from an early age. Yeah. And I think I said it one time in the car on the way back with my mum and dad that if I never made it as a footballer, I'd like to go into that industry, because it was something that was new.
Yeah.
And then, like, luckily I did go into playing professional football, but I said even if I did play until I was 35, 36, whatever the age would be that I retired, that I'd still go into it then, and I would stay in football, but go in that side of things than a coaching background. So yeah, it was at Wolves until I was 16. I was kind of like, I wasn't surprised. Well, it was a little bit of a shock that I didn't get my scholarship at Wolves, personally, because I was kind of getting taken out of school 2 or 3 times a week, training with the reserves or the first team, kind of captaining my age groups all the way through. So I wasn't thinking, yeah, I'm definitely going to be a professional footballer for Wolverhampton Wanderers, but I was doing quite well. Got sat down and said, listen, we've paid money for a couple of players from overseas that play in your position. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to let you go. So that was a bit of a kick in the teeth, really, and my first kind of downer in football. But kind of learned quite quickly that you got to pick yourself up, get back on what you want to do, and try and chase your dream. That you have to get your head down and work hard. So the next day, literally the next day, I went to Doncaster Rovers, who wanted to sign me. I went up there. Trained with the under 18s, so I was only like 15 still, but trained with under 18s for like a 2-hour session. It was snowing, it was horrible. Like, the training ground wasn't the best at the time, but the people were great there. And I did really well in the training session. They said, "Listen, we want to sign you. We've got a game on Saturday. We want you to play." And I was thinking, I've come from Wolves, like the stadium, the training grounds, top level facilities, like training. It's miles away, it's snowing. I was thinking, I don't know what to do. And not that I was like snobbish or anything like that. Wasn't the point. It was just that, like, it was just a big. All I've ever known was Wolves. And then, so I had a couple more offers. I got offered at Ipswich, offered at I think it might have been Ipswich and Norwich, actually. And then Shrewsbury came in for me, but I had a couple of pals playing for Shrewsbury who were my age and a little bit older. And I was thinking, I don't really want to go there because they're not great. And I was thinking that it's not really going to be a great level. I was probably in the wrong mindset of thinking I was a little bit too good for myself. But my dad was like, "Listen, you ain't got an option at the minute. Like, you've got to go and look at all these avenues, because you're not in the position to say who you can and can't go to," which I think is, again, another good thing, because I think a lot of parents in that environment in academy football, from my experience and from speaking to people who are in it now, that they do kind of think that it's all about them and it's all about their son or daughter or whoever it is playing academy football, that they're better than they actually are, when you've really got to look at the bigger picture. So I went and played in this game for Shrewsbury on the Saturday for the under 18s. Again, I was like a young boy. I'd probably not gone through my adolescence really as such. I was playing against men like 18-year-olds who had beards and everything. I was thinking, what is going on here? So that was another thing from like a physical point of view, looking at it from the sports science test, and see that these guys have had a lot more years than me at building up, like better physique, stronger running patterns, more powerful. So again, it was like, Christ, if I'm going to be a footballer, I need to look at my physicality side of things as well. But yeah, so came off the pitch, did really well. They offered me a contract there. But the reason why I signed for Shrewsbury, because the coach at the time, Dave Hughes, he's actually at Man United 21s now, or 23s, the manager there. He said to me, "Listen, I can't promise you that you're going to be a professional footballer, but I can promise you that I can make you a better player." And looking at from the age of 6 until then time, no one ever actually said to me, "I'm going to make you a better player." They just said, "This is what you do and this is how you play," and whatever. No one said, "I'm going to make you better." But that for me was good enough for me. The facilities were good, very good. The pitches were brilliant. So yeah, went there, had a 2-year scholar and a pro there. And then kind of went on loan a little bit in non-league, played for non-league clubs. But as I was playing, I started a degree in sports science and an exercise sports science, because it was something I was interested in. Then as a player, we would train at 10 in the morning. We'd be done by 12, half 12, and it was just like, what do I do now? It was kind of like, I need to use my time, because I need to get better somehow. I'd stay out for extra training, or I'd go and study. So I did like an online distant university degree in my first year of doing uni, and then kind of got let go by Shrewsbury and my contract didn't get renewed. Carried on playing like decent level football, still playing National League level football, still getting okay money, but it kind of comes to a point of realization that with this degree, with where I'm going in my football career, am I really going to keep chasing that dream of going to be Championship, Premier League and all that money? For me personally, I was a decent player, but I was never going to play Championship or Premier League football. If it was if I went through and got promoted with the team from League One or League Two, etc. I was never going to get brought. I wasn't like superstar kind of thing. And it was that realization that from a young age, I need to change what I'm doing here. So kind of spoke to my family after I finished my degree. I said, listen, I'm gonna stop playing. I don't need to chase it anymore. I think I'm really driven in this industry here, and I want to make a career of it in this industry. I'm still going to be in football. So yeah, my first job was actually from I did an internship in my last year, and then I kind of got offered a job whilst I was at uni. So I was getting a paid kind of role through Worcester Warriors. Unfortunately, obviously they've kind of just run out of business, which is like really sad. Some people I still know there. But it was a great insight to the sports science world and the S&C world, because this was real life. This was not just uni work. This was not just lecturers. This is what it means to win on a Saturday, or to put a session on, or to get somebody back fit. This was no like, this is what you could do, or this was like real life. So yeah, they offered me to stay on, but obviously my love and my passion was for football. So yeah, I wanted to get back into football, and that's when I went back to Shrewsbury Town as a fitness coach, and it was you have to have a bit of luck in life, a bit of luck in any industry, whether you play any sport or whatever job you do, you have to have a little bit of luck. So I went in there, spoke to my physio, who was the physio at the club, who was my physio when I played there, because it was only a couple of years before, and just said, listen, I want to get into football. I've done my degree. I've been working in rugby. Can I come and shadow sports science fitness guy that you've got at Shrewsbury? He said, yeah, no problem. So I went there. We had a meeting, and the guy handed his notice in, like on that day, and he went and worked with the manager who'd just previously gone, and he went back up north. So everyone just looked at me and was like, well, you kind of come into this world to try and be an intern. And I was like, well, you got to do it from now on. So I'm just thinking, I haven't really signed up for this. I've just come to learn a little bit. Obviously, I think I knew what I was on about, because I've kind of had that from a football point of view. It was a lot easier for me than rugby, because that's all I've ever known. So yeah, I got kind of thrown in the deep end, really, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I had to learn on the job, and I had to learn quick. I had to like plan the pre-season. I had to plan the pre-season tour, and I'm thinking, I've got to kind of somehow blag this, because I ain't done enough like real experience in doing it. Obviously, I had help from the physio and some of the other staff, but it was a real eye opener to how I got to work.
I'd probably say that's probably helped your career as to now. You know, that being thrown in and kind of, look, Elliot, sink or swim, you've got to do it. Basically, like, here's your chance to prove yourself. So, because you mentioned the first kind of, when you was at the Worcester, the rugby, the first kind of going in and actually being involved in a club, and like you said, it's actually serious then. That's why, you know, I say it all the time in terms of students going out and getting actual real life experience, because there's a difference between being in a lab at university and doing, you know, the things and all that with your course mates, and then actually going into a change room full of professional athletes, and, you know, you've got to get them ready for the game on Saturday. It's a huge difference. But yeah. And just actually going back to what you said about Doncaster, I'm actually in Doncaster, so it's funny you said that. That's where so now the change in the training ground is probably about the same. I'll be honest, Elliot. So there's not much change then. So just on that then. So one question I did have is, so you did that in rugby, and obviously you're now in football and stuff. So what would you say is the main differences from a fitness and conditioning point of view? Like, what did you, I know that was early in your career and maybe you've learned things since then, but what would you say are the main differences?
Well, firstly, they're obviously two completely different physical output sports. Rugby is a lot of contacts. There's not probably much distance covered in rugby compared to In football, obviously, football is a lot more continuous. Rugby's a lot of stop-start. There's a lot of tackles going on. There's a lot of line-outs, etc. The players with more higher speed work are more the wingers, fullbacks. Whereas in football, everyone's at this day and age now in formations and how expansive some teams play. People's physical outputs during the game are through the roof, especially and it's developed even more so in the 5-6 years that I've been doing it. Obviously, I dropped down into non-league level after Shrewsbury, which we can obviously touch on a little bit later, which I think is another good option for the students, etc. But especially in the last 5-6 years that I've been doing it, the physical capacity and the demands of the game has changed hugely, especially with the types of styles that people like to play now, and the levels obviously that I've gone up in. That's the difference. So we played Chelsea last year in the FA Cup, and we took them all the way to the extra time. We missed the penalty in the 119th minute actually to take them to pens, but technically, obviously, they're superb. We on the day were very good technically and did what we did, but it was I wouldn't say the fitness element things. It was how quick they did things, the sharpness of it, the intensity that when they had a little spell on the ball, it was like mind blowing of how quickly they do things, and that's just because of how good of an athlete they actually are. And I'm not saying our boys are not good athletes. They are. They're superb what they do. They're conditioned well. They look after themselves, but that next level of having that, they've got the top facilities of everything. They've got the top recovery stuff. They've got the top gym facilities, whatever it is. They've got the chefs with them every day. They have chefs with them on a night at their own house and stuff like that. It's a different level, and all those 1% in different areas add up to you becoming a superb athlete. So rugby was obviously a Premiership rugby that I was in. So obviously they have great facilities, superb, international players from all across the world. And it was more the physical impact of stuff. And would I say they work harder than footballers? Potentially, just because they do more. So they'll have. I used to get in at like 5 o'clock in the morning. They had their first gym session at like 7:30. Then they'd have a skills session after breakfast. Then they'd have a training session. Then they'd come in after training session, have lunch, and after lunch they'd have another gym session, and that was every day. So whereas football is more based upon trying to have a little bit more recovery, then we'll go for a gym kind of session in midweek if we haven't got a game from a lowers point of view and lowers strength. We'll have a day off in between. We'll then have upper session on a Thursday. Well, this is just how my philosophy is alongside training. Friday is a little bit lighter than travel if we're away, and then to play games Saturday. So it's a bit more, I wouldn't say wrapped up in cotton wool, but it's a bit more structured in the sense of these guys, the intensity that these guys play is through the roof compared to rugby. Rugby is obviously just takes a lot more impacts and on that side of things. And obviously they weigh a lot more. They've got a lot more muscle mass, and they eat a lot more.
Very true, very true. So I've got your LinkedIn profile up, Elliot, just so we can kind of go back on some of you mentioned the previous roles, you've touched on them. So if we go, so you mentioned you went back into kind of shadow. That was at Shrewsbury, you said, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Went back to there. So let me just get this profile. Okay, so and then you went to you had a bit of time at Kidderminster. So it's kind of obviously you mentioned you're from the Midlands, so Kidderminster and then Solihull. So within that, would they both been like National League level at that point?
Yeah, so Kidderminster National League North, and then Solihull in National League. So they're just the one below the League Two. So Kidderminster came about. I left Shrewsbury. So we did really well that season. I was at Shrewsbury. We got to the player final. Got to the kind of like it's called the Papa John's Trophy now, but that final there. So we had a real successful season, and the manager left and went to Ipswich. So then that kind of opened the door for a new manager to come in and kind of bring his own people in, which happens in football. So kind of in a way it was good, but in a way it was bad because I've had a successful season. I think we got medical team of the year and performance team of the year for what we did. So nice little accolade to be a part of in my first year. Then the side of things of being that taken away from you is like that kind of hit home again of being back to my football career. So
Yeah.
you think you're doing well, and then you get that like
Not
knockback. So it was kind of like thinking, oh, I need to start all over again. Yeah, I was lucky to kind of get that role, in a sense, but I think I've done well. And obviously, football's ruthless. That's just how it is. So yeah, I dropped down into non-league, which I'm probably going to say was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it enabled me to. I was on my own. I had no support staff around me or anything to help me. And I went to Kidderminster through the chairman there at the time was called Colin Gordon. He used to be an ex-football agent, etc. I think he's gone back into football agency now. Real good guy and helped me massively. Still speak to him regularly now. He offered me the opportunity to go into Kidderminster Harriers, even though they were Conference North. They were a full-time program, so they played full-time. So there was probably 3 teams in the league at the time that were full-time. The rest were part-time. And for me, being obviously in the Midlands, not having to move. Going into a full-time environment where I can build my philosophy and build my ideas into a club that's had nothing like this before. They've had no sports science, they've had no S&C coach before. It was a department that he wanted to build for the football club with us going full-time, that he felt like they needed it. So for me to go in there and kind of straight away start getting GPS units that the lads had never used before, starting to do gym programs, starting to do injury prevention work, there was a massive buy-in factor because they'd never had it. So again, that was good for me. I had a good relationship with the players because I was bringing something new to them that they were improving on, something that we felt like we were going to have an edge over, and most of the teams in the league with the GPS unit, seeing how far we ran, doing some training loads, doing periodization, they'd never had before. And it was kind of all my things that I'd learned from Shrewsbury getting pushed into Kidderminster. So yeah, it was great. I had a great time there. COVID kind of came, and we had a manager at Kidderminster came at the time while I was at Kidder called Jimmy Shan. He was Darren Moore's assistant at West Brom, and then when West Brom got rid of Darren, he kind of took over his caretaker role when they were in the Championship. I think they lost to Villa in the playoffs. Semi-final to go to Wembley and that, and it was just those fine margins for him that if they win that game, he could have gone and been maybe the manager in the Premier League. But then he dropped out, and they wanted to keep him on at West Brom, but he didn't want to stay. He wanted to kind of go his own venture, and he just helped out Kidderminster. Colin got him in and helped out for 9 weeks, but then COVID hit. But during that time, we'd done well. He's a young manager with a real good philosophy behind him, real good footballing brain, and a real good reputation really for what he's done in the game so far, being obviously a real good coach and wanting to go into management. So Solihull rang him and asked him to be the manager. So he kind of, I've only been working with him for 9 weeks, and he said, listen, I want you to be part of my team. I've seen the work that you've done. You're enthusiastic. You're really good on the grass. Your relationship that you have with the players is really important. It's really good that you get on with you. There's a line between a friendship and a working relationship. You know when to go in between, because people in my role, we spend the most time with all the players. So we'll spend time with them in the morning, we'll spend time with them before training, during training, after training. We're there all the time with them, whereas the coaches only see them on the training pitch. So we have to have that relationship and build that buy-in. So he liked that about the way I work. So I went to Solihull there. That was where my first real thing that I built, or I didn't build it myself, but I designed the brand new gym facility at the club. So again, that was something that they were looking to improve on. They had a brand new training ground, and they wanted to build a gym facility on site to help. So I was a part of that in my first season there, which was huge. And again, it's like something that the players hadn't had previously. So I've come in, a new member of staff, and I've basically come with a new gym, brought them that facility. And it's like, well, we mean business. We want to we've got this facility on site now. We want to get better. So yeah, it was really good, my time there. Fortunately, didn't work out for Jimmy at Solihull. I think we had a few tough issues with some injuries that were unfortunately contact injuries, a couple of bad injuries to some really key players, and it kind of just didn't help with the season going ahead. So unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. In the second season there, that Neil Ardley came in, a manager who was at Wimbledon. again, real good guy. Still speak to him now. Really, really nice guy. I still speak to Jimmy as well. He's now at Sheffield Wednesday on Darren Moore's coaching staff. So I actually saw him the other week. So it was nice to catch up. Neil Ardley came in, got on with him really well. And I was probably only there 2 months when Ryan Lowe contacted me at Plymouth. He was the manager at Plymouth at the time. He was at Preston now. And he asked me to go into Plymouth and be the man there. Yeah. I'd met Ryan. I've actually met Ryan on holiday in Dubai. So I was out there with my girlfriend. Kind of at the time, I was on holiday, but I was doing work out there. So I was working with players, Premier League players, Championship players, doing off-season work with the company. With a guy called John Phillips. So John Phillips is now he's worked at QPR, he's worked at Southampton. He's had some real good roles. I kind of see him as like my mentor now within the sports science world. I speak to him on different things, ask for advice. So I work for his company out there, and Ryan saw me doing my work, etc., and said, "Listen, if I ever need somebody that, if my guy leaves or whatever the situation, or if there's another opportunity, I always kept in touch." And then it was just a random Thursday night phone call that I had, and I'm still at Plymouth now.
So I mean, Plymouth is definitely not the Midlands. There's a trend so far. You're in the Midlands. So is that a big for you at the time? Did you hesitate? Because I don't think you can get much further away from anywhere really in Plymouth. So was there any hesitation with that, or was you just like, no, I want to do that? That sounds like a great opportunity.
For me, I think there was no hesitation. It was, I'm coming, whatever it is. And that was nothing to do with, or no disrespect to Solihull. That was just me thinking, this is a great step.
So
great step.
When did you join Plymouth, Elliot? Was it after?
So it was last September.
So because they just missed out on the playoffs last season.
Yes, I was there last season. Yeah.
So, go on.
Yeah. So I just spoke to Solihull. Said, listen, obviously I've had a pay rise kind of thing, which again is important when I'm still young in what I do. I'm only 28. So at the time I was only 26, 27. I was only 26. I think that to be that and be the head of a League One football club at 26 or 27 is real big. And for me, there was obviously I've got a family at home, etc. But I have to take this step for my career. Otherwise, I'm doing it for nothing. What's the point? I might as well always stay in the Midlands and not move and just try and nick a living. Do you know what I mean? But it's about progression. It's about wanting to be better and going back into the football league, working for a huge football club. I know it is far and it's far away from everywhere, but it's a huge football club. Fans are brilliant, and I love it down here. So on that front, there was no hesitation really, because I kind of worked hard. I'd worked at Worcester Warriors with hardly any pay. I'd worked in the non-league environments, going to horrible grounds, putting in the hours because I was on my own. There was no support team around me. And I thought that if I don't take this opportunity, I've done it all for nothing. And now when you're working at a football club that's got a little bit more, probably a better infrastructure behind it, good ownership, more facilities, on that side of things, in terms of more obviously budget for certain things, and then obviously working the football league, going to amazing grounds, working with athletes that are top low level athletes, or loan players that we have that from Premier League clubs that you can potentially work with, that they're going to go and have an unbelievable career because they're just young at the moment and building their trade. And it's amazing. And then also working with players who've had a real good football league career, and trying to make them better as they're getting older, and trying to prolong their career because they deserve it, because they work hard. So the much more information and help that you can give them, the better. And it's about building a reputation as well. If you do well at a League One club and your team's successful, it's also looks good on yourself as well.
Definitely. So for those that don't know, Plymouth currently top of League One. I know League One quite well, Elliot, because I'm a Sunderland fan. So obviously we got promoted, but we were in there for a few years. So played you guys, several times there. So top of the league at the moment. You're currently in a hotel with an away game tomorrow because, like we said, there's a lot of traveling, which we'll come on to the traveling side of things later on, actually. So, because I know you probably do the most traveling out of the whole league. If I'm right,
it's crazy, mate. It's crazy.
So in terms of like the Plymouth, then, so you obviously went under Ryan. Ryan's now at Preston, so it changed. But I believe as the manager now, was he the assistant before?
Yes. So Stephen Schumacher's assistant. Yeah. So Gaffer is. It was kind of I think he potentially was maybe going to go, but then obviously Plymouth offered him the first team manager's role here, which again for someone he's 37 at the time, 38. That it's a massive thing to be manager of a football club at so young. And he's brilliant, really, really, really good coach, really good manager. And it was kind of, I mean, Ryan Lowe also brilliant and also very good at what he did. So I think the club kind of felt that it was right to kind of continue something and not bring anybody in new. So obviously Gaffer took over. Which kind of got a little bit used to because everyone just called him Shuey and that before, but then he was in the Gaffer now. So it's like a couple of weeks to get used to that. But no, the transition's been really good. He's obviously had the full support of all the staff around him. He's brought his own assistant in, Mark Hughes, who again I've got a real good relationship with, and has fitted in well. He actually retired only in January last year. He was playing at Bristol Rovers. He retired just through an injury. He's known the Gaffer a long time. They played at Everton together. So again, it's good that they've got, obviously you kind of got friends working together, but also on a real journey to try and do well for the football club and obviously for themselves. So I kind of, again in football, my head was with what's happened previously at the clubs, that obviously the manager who brought me in has actually gone. Does now I know the assistant, obviously he's now the Gaffer, like, does he want to keep me? So my first question was like, listen, am I in your plans, kind of thing? Because obviously I'm a long way from home. I'm on my own down, my family are back home. I kind of need to know, really, because I can't just, there's nothing else down in Plymouth. You know what I mean? There's nothing else. I need to get back home if not. And he was like, listen, no, you've done a brilliant job so far. You're part of the team. I want you to work with you every day. So listen, you're not going to be going anywhere unless you wanted to go. But no, it was great. Again, like I said, building relationships with players. It's also really important for members of staff to be building relationships with all the members of staff. And my relationship with the Gaffer is really good. We get on well from a working relationship and then also a personal relationship as well. So I feel like I can speak to him about anything really. And then when we work, we work well together. He buys into the sports science world and the S&C world. Obviously, there's moments where we're basically advisory staff. We obviously can't tell him what to do, or tell him you can't play this player or this player needs a rest, etc. We're only advisory. And that's not so an issue comes up and he doesn't listen to it and then you go, I told you so. It's not about that. It's just about building that relationship and your opinion best for him and best for the football club or the team. So we've worked really well together so far. I think that it was our first pre-season together this pre-season. So again, it was big for him, his first one as a manager, and really big for me in terms of my first one at the football club. So my philosophy and how I see things compared to the previous regime, and it's gone really well. The lads love the pre-season, and so far, touch wood, we're going all right. And lads, we're finishing games strong. Lads are looking well at the end of games, and we've shown some real strong performances so far.
So what do you mention it there, Elliot? So what does pre-season look like then for you? I'm sure that's probably a big part of the season. You know, obviously an important time for you to make sure the players are conditioned and they're ready to start the season. So do you tend to get players back completely different ends of the scale? Like some have let themselves go a bit more than others. And is it how does the pre-season look for you? And what do you like to kind of get implemented early on so they are ready for the season?
So I'm not really all the boys have an off-season program. So I speak to Gaffer 3 months before the season finishes about what pre-season is going to look like. So the plans are in place in January, February, really. And then the off-season plans, they're all done during the season for them. As soon as they go on the last day, they've got their plans to go and do. They'll give them a couple of weeks off, just go and rest up, go and be time with the family, go and go on holiday, whatever you want to do. And then I'll build a program individually for the player, mainly based off positional work. So there'll be obviously each position has a different physical demand. So looking at different running kind of things for each position, building the intensity, and then kind of individualizing it based upon where I want them to be at, based off GPS data from the season before. So if I know player A and player B hit certain metrics for high speed running, total distance, top speed, I want them building to a certain percentage of that before they come back into the pre-season. Because if you go from 0 to 100 or even 0 to 70%, it's a huge hit on the body, and that's when you start really picking up injuries. But a real big focus of mine during the off season is, I think, a time that you don't really get a lot chance to do it during the season because there's so many games, but I have a real big focus on the gym work during the off season. I literally they were doing 2-3 sessions of lowers in the off season, 2-3 sessions of upper body work, just to try and build that muscle and build that strength markers, so that when they come back, pre-season, everybody knows that whether it's old school or whether it's new kind of regime, that there's running involved. There's a lot of running involved to get fit, because at the end of the day we play football and that's what we do. So a lot of mine was based with the ball, but based within football sessions, so that there's no point just constantly running around pitches or constantly running around tracks, etc. Yes, in times you need that kind of work in terms of your 1,000-meter runs or your 800-meter runs, etc. I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing, but the main emphasis of getting your fitness work, and those, I would class those kind of runs as like your top-up runs, just to build that base and build that aerobic fitness. But the actual football work and the actual football fitness, we play football. We don't play another sport. We're not looking to run 1,500 meters as quick as we can, or 5,000 meters quick. We're not in the Olympics. We play football. So my philosophy is all we're working with the ball and fitness, that kind of side of things. So the lads need to come back to a certain level to play football at a certain intensity. So it was, the real focus was building the football fitness in the first couple of weeks alongside some of those top-up aerobic runs. And then the sessions became a little bit more intenser when, in terms of smaller areas, and a lot more sharper work when the pre-season games started to come in, because then I'd use the pre-season games to start building your aerobic and your football fitness again. So yeah, for the gym side of things in the off season enables you to come back and be able to do that, because sometimes you can come back and you can be really sore after a session, or your DOMs, if you the next day you train, you think, oh, I'm really sore, I can't do this. Whereas if you've had that kind of DOMs and your body's been used to having that workload, even though it's not football but through the gym, you can get through those sessions. So I kind of used it as, the analogy I've used is like put it in their off-season plans as a night out. So before a night out, a lot of people do. If you don't, you're stupid. But if you need to have a good meal before you go on a night out and have a few drinks with your pals, because if you don't, you're going to be in a whole world of trouble. So I kind of use the analogy as, if you don't do your gym work, which is your meal, before you come back to pre-season, which is your night out, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Not because my pre-season is horrendous, but it's because the workload that we want and the intensity we want from you, your body needs to be able to deal with it, and you need that kind of cushion there, which would be your big meal. So your gym's your bit of a cushion to soak up that alcohol, soak up that running. So that's the kind of analogy I use with them, and it's about them getting to buy into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're footballers that, I'm not saying they're not, they obviously enjoy themselves as well. They're top athletes, but they enjoy themselves as well. So does all the Premier League footballers and whatever, or the top rugby players or the top tennis players or cricket players, etc. They all have a normal life as well. So it's about building that kind of analogy in there that is normal life. I'm a human being. I'm not a robot. So kind of building that into them as well, and then kind of added in the high speed run and the aerobic runs during the pre-season. So that's how I see how it's changed now. I think back in the day, you hear a lot of players saying everyone used to come back and use pre-season to get fit.
Yeah, yeah.
Where now lads are having 2 weeks off, probably maximum, and then they're back on it. And that's not mean not full throttle, but it's just a slow, gradual increase of fitness work ready for them to come back in, because if you're miles off it, you're not going to be playing.
Yeah. So in terms of then, you're in the season now, let's say. So I'm just curious to know what an average week looks like for you, Elliot, but also what a match day might look like as well. So obviously you're probably playing 2 games a week every week, so there'll be a lot of travel in there. So that's another question to come afterwards was, how does the travel affect the players? Because I'm sure you're spending hours on coaches and stuff like that. And, you're not going straight to play the game. You've got the overnight stays, but I'm sure it does have an effect. So I suppose the first question being, on an average week, Elliot, what would you tend to get up to, and how much time are you spending on the grass? How much time are you in the actual, with the players inside, and then gym, etc. So what kind of things do you get up to?
So for ourselves, we actually don't have our own gym facility at Plymouth, which is quite interesting in itself. It's obviously the cards that we dealt at the moment, and that we have to come up with a different way. So we have got a gym in terms of, we work with the Nuffield Health, we're sponsored by Nuffield Health, and then we've also got really close to the university that's literally just up the road. So we use those facilities. So from even looking from a recovery point of view, so obviously we'll play on a Saturday. That will be our main game day, really, other than a Tuesday night. Sunday we will be off. Monday is more of a kind of recovery day for those who've played, and those who are substitutions or not involved will have a bit more of a intenser session to get some workload in, because they've had a little bit of not much workload on the Saturday. On a Saturday after a game, I'd kind of do more their top up high speed work and sprint work, just because that is needed for them to weekly to be kept on that level. And plus, it's an easy way to get that workload in after a game, because you can do it quite quickly. And obviously with our travel, we could be, first away game of the season was Fleetwood away. It took us 10 hours to get there. But then we've got to come back after a game. So the game finishes at 5. Lads, by the time they get changed, etc., are on the coach for 6 o'clock, and you're not getting in your bed till 3 a.m, and you finished at 5. Like, what's all that about? So you have to take that in consideration as well, that you top at work. Sometimes you might want to do a little bit more after a game, but it's not necessary when you've got to think of the opposite side of things, that when you can get it done on the Monday morning. So they do all their football work and a little bit more workload on a Monday compared to after a game. I just top them up high speed and sprint after a game. So Monday workload recovery. Sometimes if we really think it's necessary, if we don't have a game on a Tuesday, we will sometimes keep the boys off feet, those who've played, so they can go to the gym, they can use the pool. So we can do a pool recovery session, we can do a bike session. They can just get some kind of upper body workload in there for one of their tasks to do, and then they come back and have treatments with the medical team. Last year, we're going to be getting it back in this year, but last year we had a cryotherapy chamber in. We use that. Obviously, I know there's a lot of studies out there that say that ice baths are better, but you try and get players into an ice bath for 10 minutes when they can go into a cryo chamber for 3 minutes and kind of be done. And it's massively helped with the lads' sleep, which again is a big thing for when we travel, because we don't get back till all hours of the morning. So if there's any 1% we can get, then great. And obviously away games, we don't have those facilities, we have them after. So Monday is that kind of a little bit in between. There's a working group and there's a recovery group. Tuesday will be our main real work day, so we'll do some eccentric work in the morning to help the boys as like a pre-activation thing before training. Training will then be out on the grass, and we'll probably be out on the grass a little bit longer on a Tuesday, still no more than an hour and a half. So hour and a half be the maximum that we train for, but obviously split in between different sessions. And that's the real day that we look at, trying to build everybody's high speed and sprint work up, and just getting those levels topping up in that sense, alongside obviously a bigger loading day in terms of distance for the session. I feel that I do it more on a Tuesday because, one, it enables the body to recover a little bit longer. Previously I've done it on a Thursday, some sprint work, and obviously then looking into research, etc., that it takes probably around about 48 hours for muscles to recover from a sprint explosive movements. So that then leads them into Saturday when they've only just recovered. Whereas if we do Tuesday, they're off. Wednesday, Thursday is more of a tactical session where the gaffer will put his tactics about for the game on Saturday. So they have a little bit longer to then build into that Saturday where they can go full throttle again. But then also Tuesday, sometimes we do have a game on a Tuesday. So it's just keeping that body at the same, thinking, well, I still need to, on a Tuesday, do these kind of movements and these distances at these speeds, because it's amazing how much the body can remember. And so you ask any injured player, they can do all the rehab they want, they can feel really fit in rehab, they can have no issues whatsoever, but they go into that first training session and they are blowing because the body, the intensity, the actual football movements, it's completely different. So if you don't do that and you play Saturday to Saturday and you don't have a midweek game and you don't do any top-up work on that Tuesday, one, you're looking at people's training loads and they're going to be down. So then they have a massive spike of increase during the game on a Saturday. But then also when that Tuesday night game comes, the body's not used to doing it on a Tuesday. So that's another reason why I do that on a Tuesday. Wednesday, on the Tuesday afternoon, we'll do lower leg work. So we'll do legs in the gym. So I'll go through a hypertrophy, strength and a power phase every 4 weeks, change it up in the gym. Wednesday will be off. Thursday will be, again, in the morning, we'll do some isometric work. So again, working on lower limb isometric work. Just again as a pre-activation for training and just trying to build those muscle fiber recruitment in there. We'll train Thursdays a little bit more tactical base, unit base in terms of forwards, defenders, midfielders, and then all coming together and working on information that we're going to put in the game plan for the Saturday. Fridays then a little bit more of I wouldn't say a fun day, but a bit more short, sharp, intense. They have a little bit of small-sided games, which is quite competitive because they have something called the Champions League. So Gaffer makes it quite competitive that there's different teams each week, but if you win, you get 3 points. If you come second, you get 1 point. If you lose, you get nothing. But at Christmas and at the end of the season, all the players put in and the staff put in, like we buy them like presents and stuff like that, or like for the top 3 places, etc. Like they might have a night away with their wife or their girlfriend, or they'll have vouchers to go and buy clothes or whatever it is. It just keeps it competitive because sometimes it can become a bit like, just a small-sided game, don't matter, but it's something on it, and they all look at the league table when they come in after who's where. So that's on a Friday, and then when we play away, we have to train quite early. So we've done it a couple of ways. Since I've been here, we sometimes we will mainly, if I say 90% of the time, we train at the training ground really early. And we can try and get our work done, get on the coach, and it could take us hours to get anywhere we need to go, really. But then sometimes, depending on if we think it's doable or not, we'll leave early in the morning and then we'll train on the way up. So we've trained at Bristol City before. We've obviously got contacts there, so we can get at least 2 and a bit hours up and then jump off and then train. But personally, I don't like doing that. And I don't think the players as such like doing it, just because they've been on the coach for a couple of hours. They're stiff. And you go and train session, and like I said, that training session is quite short, sharp, and it's intense. I just look at it from a point of view is that I'd rather them get a real good session before and then just have a few stops on the way up if we need to. And then they have treatments at the hotel on the night for rubs, etc., whatever, to help them out, and different recovery methods. And anything can happen during those training sessions. Anybody's body who's not prepared because they've been on the coach for a couple of hours, that anything could happen, and we just want to limit that risk. And then we just prepare for the game on Saturday and then just go again. And that's just week to week, the week of a football club.
No, that's interesting. So I suppose your kind of focus then is to make sure the players are fit for match day. I watched another interview you did, Elliot, where you say in terms of, obviously the gaffer's got his first 11 that he wants to play, and it's your kind of job to get as many of them fit for that match day as possible and make sure they're working and they can play these 2 games a week for however long. So I suppose that's important. And just kind of in terms of what the department looks like then, so in terms of like the sports science department, who else are you kind of working with? Who are your kind of colleagues in that department, and how do those relationships work as well?
You're just looking at it, really.
Your department, yeah. Yeah,
I'm the only one in my department. Obviously, we've got a physio. We've got two physios. We've got a sports therapist. We've got interns in that kind of department.
yeah,
I feel for my kind of side of the things. Obviously, I'm a lone wolf, and I kind of always have been in the clubs I've been at,
yeah,
and I don't mind it. But obviously, the pressure's on because I have to do all the pre-activation work. I have to do all the warm-ups. I do all the GPS loading, all the GPS monitoring analysis on the computer. Do all the S&C programs, all the nutrition work. So I've kind of got 5 or 6 individual roles really that your Man United, Chelsea's, and all these clubs have 2 or 3 people in each position.
yeah,
The pressure's on in that side of things, but I work closely with the medical team. They're brilliant. They work with me in terms of that. They help out with any things that I need, or we kind of work with each other. From an internship point of view, I'd love to have an intern working with me. I think it's important because I've done that role as well. I've been there, and you need that experience, like you said, that guys listen to the students, and that's really important that you get out there and you go and get some experience. It doesn't have to be at a football league club. Go
yeah,
to your local non-league club and go and help out, or whatever it is. Go and do it because it's really important. I think even in sometimes people are not going to take you when you're in your first year or second year, but somehow if you could imagine having coming out of your degree at your third year, and you've done something in your first year, something in your second year, something in your third year, instead of just 2 months on your third year,
yeah,
you're so open to seeing things that have happened and having a real understanding of what it's like to be in that industry.
yeah,
But then also at the same time, you can see whether you actually want to be in the industry,
yeah,
because you could get to the third year, oh, this is what I want to do, and you've set yourself on it, you've done work really hard, and then you come to doing an internship at a club or wherever you're going to be, and you hate it because
yeah,
you've had no experience of it,
yeah,
or you just don't see yourself fitting in. And you have to have the right character for it as well, to be within, especially football. It's ruthless, and the lads I work with are great lads. But obviously, there's banter involved with any sport and whatever. And if you
yeah,
can't take that all, etc., you are going to struggle within that environment. I think it's like that with most sports.
yeah,
So I'd love to have an intern with me. I think that the location doesn't help,
yeah,
and it doesn't help the fact that a lot of intern positions aren't paid.
yeah,
Um, and also the commitment level of it. So my location, obviously we've got a couple of universities in Plymouth, but again, with them not being paid, and a lot of people at the university and doing the degree are from different parts of the country.
yeah,
They're only down here to do the uni degree, do you know what I mean, etc. They want to gain the experience, but then maybe when they come in after a week or two, it's not really for them.
yeah,
And I can't really have someone in who's going to be, I can't come in today,
yeah,
or I can't make it this week.
yeah,
It's like you're either in or you're not.
yeah,
So again, that's something to look at if you are listening to your student, that if you're going to commit to it and you're going to do it, you've got to do it right, because you never know, anything can happen. They could offer you a job at the end of it if you're right.
yeah,
For example, obviously at the moment we're going well and we're doing well at League One. It's a long season ahead, but if, say for example, we went up automatic, or we got in the playoffs and went up that kind of way, we're going to be a championship football club, and the department needs to be bigger, because again, there's more demands and more pressure. So if I had an intern, for example, this year, and I was impressed with him or her, and he or she did really well,
yeah,
worked hard, got the head down, and one, it was willing to learn and had a good character, it might be something that I say to the football club, listen, we need to kind of keep this
yeah,
person involved.
yeah,
So just from you being committed,
mhm,
enthusiastic, and having a good character, you've earned yourself a job at a championship football club,
yeah, yeah,
and it's your first year.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's massive that these opportunities. It's about it's about who you know, but you have to impress as well. So that's my department really. There's just me, and I work with alongside the physios. and the sports therapist, and we've got a good relationship working there. And it helped because the physio who's here at the moment, he was actually my physio at Shrewsbury. So he was like the second physio when I was a player.
Yeah.
So I came down and think I knew some of the players because I played with them and been their fitness coach previously, so that was good.
Yeah.
But then I came down into a working environment that the physio was actually my physio previously, so I've known him.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time that he was here because it happened so quickly. And our philosophy in terms of how we see the training week looks, how we see training load, how we see rehab, it's all the same. So it's not like I've had to we're not butting heads, or we're not having to build that with what we want to do, which is really nice. So yeah, that's our department really. And then again, it's working with all the different coaches. The first team coach, the assistant, the manager. It's about building those relationships with those guys, with the analysts, like you said in your world. Building how can you come together, looking at clips for physical point of views, like is anybody sprinting there? Do we look tired? Is there massive gaps, like etc. And because I have an interest in football and I've got a background in it, my eye on a match day, I can see things that maybe some sports science or S&C coaches who are not football based or football renowned, that they don't really see that, but I kind of do. And then I want to involve it in my work. So I kind of sit in a lot of the analysis sessions with the manager and the players because I want to know how he works and what he wants them to do from a tactical point of view, so that then I can recreate that from a physical point of view in terms of I know what demands they want. So when we do rehab and players are coming back from injury, I can put those kind of messages across and put sessions on for them to relate to.
Yeah. So then I mean, that is interesting. And obviously the relationship, I think the fact that you've played the game is obviously probably a very high benefit for you because you understand the player's perspective as well. I mean, I'm kind of, if we touch on the GPS stuff, because you've mentioned that a little bit there, Elliot. So are you in charge of the GPS stuff at the club? And that's kind of what unfolds. So what kind of things, for those that are, unfamiliar with the GPS units, what are they tracking? What kind of things are they tracking, and what are you looking at, and what do you get from them really?
So obviously, as throughout the years GPS has evolved, there's now hundreds and hundreds of metrics that you can look at. Now, for you to really look into that, you'd need at least 3 or 4 data analyst guys to look at what's there. But with being myself, and even if there was just one more of us in my department, the main metrics that people look at within football on your day to day, and what you look at in terms of trying to get people across the week in a similar pattern would be obviously your total distance, so how far they run each session and how far they run in a game, and then obviously the collective across the week and across a 4-week period. High speed running, which in working with our GPS units is anything between 5.5 and 6.9 meters per second. So that's classed as a high speed running bracket. And then sprint distance is anything over 7 meters per second. So obviously some players accumulate more higher speed work than others. One, based on positional, and then 2, based on the type of athlete that they are. A 7 meter per second for player A might be quite quick, because their top speed might only be 8 point something, but then you've also got players who are in speeds of 9.8, 9.9 meters per second. So 7 really isn't a sprint to them. It's still in that high speed bracket. So it's about differentiating those kind of players to the metrics. We look at top speed. It's really important that the lads have at least a 90% exposure per week of top speed. So whatever their top speed is individually, I like them to get, whether it's in the game, if we do play Tuesday, Saturday, or if it's a Saturday to Saturday, I'll do that top speed work on a Tuesday to make sure that their body's at least getting a 90% hit of top speed work. We look at accelerations and decelerations at certain speeds. So that's like slowing down and speeding back up again. So when you're pressing the ball or when you're changing direction, etc. So those are the real main ones that we look at. Obviously meters per minute as well. looking at whether players in games or in training sessions or the intensity of sessions that are matched to what we want to be at. We can work in periods of 4 to 5 minute blocks, or we can look at a bigger block of a 10, 12 minute block of wedge meters per second in training compared to a game day, which I use massively in pre-season really for one of my drills and what I was looking at. So those are what we really look at, to be honest. There's thousands of other metrics, etc., but it's about what's important and what we really need to look at on a week-to-week basis. There's other things like imbalances, so you can see where the players are favouring one side more than the other, which can then potentially highlight an injury, or can highlight an injury, highlight a reason why an injury has happened. They might be feeling something on one side, and then that side's being more overworked in terms of foot placement and stuff. So there's so many things out there, but it's about the main ones that you need to look at. And like I said, with me being on my own, it's about streamlining that process.
So if you're training and obviously got the GPS on while you're training, are you monitoring the data live during, or is that something you do afterwards, after training? Or
so I have that live. So to be fair, I've been quite lucky that during my football clubs that I've worked at, even at non-league, the teams I wanted to get live data in, because it's so important to know. Because you can be, I think at Shrewsbury at the time, we didn't have live data at Shrewsbury, and we didn't know what players were doing during the session. We targeted the session, so I say gaffer, all the coaches, so we want you to hit 5 kilometres today. We need the players to hit minimal high speed and sprint distance, or days where we need to have big high speed and sprint distance, and the lads need to hit this for their weekly load. But we couldn't see whether they were doing it or not. So it'd always then be after the event, so after training, that you'd see what we'd done, and then it was either playing catch up in terms of the following day, or it was, Christ, we've done too much here, we need to drop off again. And then that can always affect coaches' plans during the week. So I would have a real focus of, one, allowing the coaches and the management to do what they need to do, the session they need to do, and then looking at it and go, right, okay, that's the session we're doing today, perfect. Well, let's try, if you can do that session, let's try and use this area so that we can reduce the amount of high speed run, if we're kind of looking at trying to reduce that, or let's increase this time frame that we do this for because we want a bigger output. I think it's the wrong way to go about it is to come in the morning and go, right, these are all the metrics that we need to hit today, and you can't go above them or you can't go below them. It's about letting the coaches do what they need to do, and if I need to top up the lads, or I need to speak to the coach, say, listen, if we got another 2 blocks of this section, maybe let's just drag it down to 1 block, or if you're going to do 2 blocks and you want to have the 2 blocks, let's cut the time frame down. And it's about having that communication during the session. And so I have the iPad live, and that enables me to do that. And then in games as well, sometimes fans can be, oh, why are you taking him off? He's doing so well or whatever. But I can be looking at him and be like, Gaff, he's blown a gasket here in terms of his stats through the roof, which is really good. Is he going to be able to keep us up for the next 20, 30 minutes of the second half? Probably not. Does that then have an effect on our performance in terms of our intensity? Potentially. So you might want to look at that. Does that match with your eye? Do you see that? Yeah, I do, or no, I don't. If he does, great. You've kind of come on the same vibe that someone's tiring or someone's not going to be able to keep it up even though they're doing well. And we need to put fresh legs on there to keep that intensity high. So I wouldn't say I have a decision on substitutes, but I have to make them aware of what players are doing and whether players are tiring or whether players are not tiring but have done huge workload that they could potentially tire. And that's a decision that the gaffer makes. He might not make the decision to take the player off, and then he potentially might get injured, or potentially he might blow up and then he might lose his man for a goal because he's too tired or whatever. So concentration levels at the end of the game because you're mentally fatigued. So all these things play into it, and that's why it's part of my job to advise and use the GPS stats and use the iPad that I have to enable us to do that.
I suppose because it could then increase the risk of injury if they are fatigued and they've been overworked. So it reminded me, actually, I've done another one of these with Chris, a boxing analyst who's worked with like Anthony Joshua at camps and stuff, and he said the same thing where they'd have like sensors in his gloves, and if he'd thrown too many punches over a certain amount of loads, it would be his job to kind of input and say, I think he's done a bit too much of that for this time period. Let's kind of move on and do something else. So it's just having like passing the information on and kind of doing, tweaking the training from that really. So it's very interesting. So I'm just going through the questions here, Elliot. So in terms of, I mean, how would you describe your work-life balance, Elliot? It's quite a so that probably says it all, the little chuckle. So yeah, you're in a hotel now. Are you got a game next Tuesday, or are you? Yeah. Is that at home? So you're away again on the Saturday, or?
So we play away tomorrow. We play at home on Tuesday, and then we don't play until the Monday. It's actually the Devon Derby on Monday against Exeter, and it's live on Sky Sports. So we kind of, our next week is going to be a little bit different in terms of how it looks, in terms of days off, in terms of loading, etc. Because it'll be a bit of a longer week, because Monday is essentially going to be our Saturday, which then has an effect on the following week as well. So we'll be at home on that game as well. So yeah, we get away tomorrow, which is not too bad because we're only Bristol. We're playing Bristol Rovers, so it's not too bad in terms of travel. So they won't get back too late. But yeah, work-life balance, it's quite difficult in football in general. I think even if I was to live at home and to be within the Midlands with my family, it'd still be hard, because football is 24/7. Whether you have a day off, whatever, you're going to get phone calls from managers, phone calls from physios, phone calls from players, and you have to take those calls. You can't just go, I'm off today. It's not like a 9 to 5 job, which is obviously no disrespect to it, but you can just turn your phone off and you just go back to it tomorrow morning or whatever. It's constant. We'll travel after games on away. We'll be on the coach talking about the next game. We won't just relax and just see it's done with, or we've won today or whatever, or we've lost or whatever it is. We're talking about the next game, and we're planning the next training session, we're planning the next overnight stay, we're planning the next how many days we're giving the lads off for the next monthly schedule. It's constant. So work-life balance, obviously I try and get home as much as I can. Obviously I'm down in Plymouth on my own at the moment. Obviously family's back up home. So trying to get back home and obviously spending time with loved ones and that, and seeing your friends and that as well is difficult. And then obviously when you've been traveling a long time, you sometimes go back and you might be back for one day, and then you go back down again. To do all that and see everybody and do different things and want to go out, it's hard because you're tired. You're mentally tired and you're fatigued from the week yourself. Obviously we don't play, but we put a lot of work into it. I actually go home most weekends, or my partner and that will come down. Our family will come down, etc. And on a Monday morning, if I do go home, I'll leave at 3:30 in the morning to drive back down to Plymouth. So it's about 3 hours, just over 3 hours, and I get into work just before 7. Have a quick shower and wipe myself up to go back to work. So those are the kind of limits that people got. I mean, I don't have to do that, but if I went home on a Saturday and got home at 9 o'clock and then left home on a Sunday at 5-6 o'clock, there's no point in traveling home and no point in going home. But you also have to have, like you said, that work-life balance. It's of whether work or life comes first. So on a weekend after a game, I'm still available for work and doing stats or taking phone calls, but my life is my life. And then Monday morning, when the alarm goes off at 3:15, I'm back into work mode, and then I'll drive back down.
3:15. Wow. Fair play, Elliot. So I'm cautious at times. I know we've been on over an hour now. So just what I'd like to ask you, have touched on it a little bit, Elliot, is just, like I said, a lot of viewers of this channel are students. So if someone's watching and they want to work in a similar role that you've got and they want to go down that kind of conditioning and sports science route, what advice would you give to someone that's maybe in the second year at uni now, in terms of to follow in a path similar to what you've done?
I think one, like I mentioned previously, you have to have the mindset of going into somewhere, whether it be rugby, whether it be football, whether it be working in a single individual sport, tennis, cricket, an Olympic sport, whatever it may be, golf. You have to have the mindset of you need to work hard, and 1 or 2 times a week sometimes is the only thing you can do, but what else can you do to help out? If you have a day off, are you going to spend your day off, or are you going to go out the night before at university your day off, you're just stuck in bed doing nothing, when you could potentially go into somewhere and help out for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
You don't understand how far that can take you and how far you can go. Now, I'm not saying go to uni and just be a hermit and don't go out and don't enjoy yourself. You go and enjoy yourself, but also think about what you're there for.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it previously again, like saying first, second, or third year, whatever it is, go and get some experience.
Yeah.
Go and put yourself out there. Go to your local non-league club if you're involved in football. I'm just talking from a football point of view. Go there and just try and listen to podcasts. I'm not saying I know everything or know anything at all, really, but listen to podcasts like this. Listen to other podcasts that give more information out based on what they do on a day to day.
Yeah.
Watch YouTube videos. Look at research, and go and implement that at a football club that has no knowledge of any of it. And that's no disrespect to them, but they're a non-league football club on a Tuesday, Thursday. They just want to win to try and get higher promoted or to earn a little bit extra money. Or managers are trying to just get better and work higher at the football league or higher at the non-league pyramid. You can have a real impact on that. A lot of players are coming out of academies now and going to play non-league football. So those players have had the best of everything since they've been a certain age. They come out at 18, 19, they go to a non-league football club who have nothing in terms of any facilities or anybody guiding them on any nutrition, on any S&C work. Now, they might have if they're bright enough and willing enough, they might go and do it off their own back.
Yeah.
But imagine what you could do to somebody who's just come out of academy football, they've had a knockback. You could help that person better themselves physically. They could play every game during a non-league and they could go and get a move. And you've been a part of that. And then that's another contact for you to have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about building that net and your network system. LinkedIn, I use massively for. I'm quite out there, so I'll not in terms of out there as in like well known. I'm out there in the sense of I will message anybody who's working at any level, or message someone who's working at a Champions League club, a Premier League club, and I say, listen, can we jump on a call, or can we message? I want to pick your brains on this, because it's about learning. I don't know everything. It's about learning, and these guys are at the top of the game. They're earning the big bucks, and they're working with the top athletes, so they're obviously doing something right. It's about networking, and if you're just quite timid and you're not wanting to speak to people, then how are you gonna progress? Because you're gonna go into one day a football club, rugby club, whatever, working with a top athlete, and he's going to ask you questions. If you've got no answers for them because you've had no experience, what are you going to do? So I think, get your head down. Obviously, do your university work. But for me, the university work is. I'm not disrespecting any degrees or what they produce out there, but you could do the degree and have no recollection of what actually goes on within an environment. And I think that is where sometimes they make you do an internship for that. But then I also think there should be elements of the degree showing you how to use a GPS system, actually showing you how to prepare an athlete for a warm-up, etc. Or S&C modules are much more different because they're a lot more practical. Sports science, a little bit more open-ended. So doing research papers on Ethiopian runners and etc. or strength athletes, or like it's quite open-ended. That realistically, are we ever going to work with a Ethiopian runner who's got the world record for the marathon or whatever? Not really. Like, amazing if you did, amazing. But if not, then why not relate it to a local football team or a local rugby team or whatever, working with athletes. So I think that you going and getting that experience yourself is really important, because the university, they know you have to apply things and speak to you about the education side of things, but from a work point of view, you have to go and do that yourself.
No, I mean, it's the same when, I'd like to say, I'm from the analysis background, but I think it's in sport in general. There's that many people doing degrees, that degrees not, you can't just come out and be naive and think that you've got a sports science degree and you're going to go ahead and find a job. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of people every year that do that. So you need to make yourself stand out, and you do that by gaining the experience and actually going out and, the job's not going to come to you. You need to kind of go looking for them and kind of build up your experience that way. So very Very, very good advice.
I think as well that I'm not sure what's the population of the UK. I'm not or England itself. I'm not sure what it is.
That's to me now.
But let's say 30 odd million or whatever it is. That in actual professional football, there's 92 positions available.
Yeah, yeah.
Out of 36 million or whatever. I don't know what the actual whatever it is. So
yeah.
60 mil, whatever it is. For me, that proportion is tiny. If you want to go straight into professional sport,
yeah,
and that's why I went into non-league football, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
yeah.
So don't think that you're going to come out of a degree and go work straight at a football league club or the club that you support or Premier League club, and you're going to go and work with all these top players, and Ronaldo is going to be your prodigy. Like you're going to work with him. It's not going to work like that. If it does, you've done something right and you know somebody very high up somewhere. But you need to go and work at those non-league levels. You need to go and build your trade and build your philosophy and go and be yourself and not be kind of put into a zone where you're getting told what to do every day.
Yeah, and on the networking thing again, something that I always go on about, and that's how this conversation came about. I just messaged you on LinkedIn. I seen you on LinkedIn, stuff you post. So again, I always go on about it. But if you're watching this and you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, get yourself set up and get connecting with people that you work in roles that you want to work in. There's loads to be learned and loads of people that'll be happy to kind of get back to you and kind of help you out and stuff. So anything that you want to give a shout out to, Elliot? I'd say, of course, your time, mate. So anything that you want to say, give a shout out to, or anything we missed or anything at all, mate?
No, not really. I'm just kind of, I'm happy. Obviously, we connected and we spoke on LinkedIn, and we've actually finally been able to do this. I know it's been a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months now that we've been trying to do it, but obviously with your schedule, my schedule, it's just been absolutely hectic. And like I said, with me being in my department, I'm the only one. Can't even go, I'm just going to pop on a call for an hour, etc. while I'm at work because it's just me. Obviously, with us being travelling to Bristol today, not being too far, I've had a couple of hours to do this. So yeah, just appreciate you letting me be part of your podcast and your YouTube channel, and kind of just showing people that, yeah, my background's probably a little bit different because I've been involved in football, but I'm not academically amazing. I'm not like a buff in terms of I've not got PhDs coming out my ears and different. But I'm just a normal guy that has tried to work hard, and I've got to a certain level at the minute that I'm obviously happy with, but I want to progress. So me coming on here and being able to tell my story that is probably completely different to somebody else who's been is in my world at the minute working in football. They might have gone through all university, they might have got PhDs, they might have done research projects, they might have done whatever. But it's about everyone has a different story. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased that you've asked me to come on, and I appreciate you listening to me today.
No, that's brilliant. Like I say, appreciate your time, Elliot. We'll obviously all the best tomorrow, all the best in the Devon derby as well. We'll be looking out for the results. So if anyone wants to kind of reach out and leave any questions, obviously leave a comment below. And like Elliot said, he's also on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, that's brilliant. So thanks again, everyone, for watching. Elliot, thanks again for your time, and I will catch you with you soon, mate.
No problem, Chris. Cheers. Thank you.